All right. We're on MoonKILL, and we're here with the world's famous Baz Francis. It's Baz?
It's Baz.
Francis? And the last name?
Well, my last name in real life is Duarte, but on the stage it's Francis.
Francis. How are you doing, sir?
I'm very well. Much better for being here.
We just had a 5-song set, and geez. Well, let's just start with the first song.
Each Side of the Night.
Each Side of the Night.
Yeah.
That was a personal request myself.
Yeah, I had to rehearse that out back. I wasn't expecting that. And yeah, it was funny because that's actually kind of the origin of the song. I had for Face That Launched 1,000 Shipwrecks, I had 12 songs, but then at the last minute I wasn't happy with one of them. So I thought I better write another song, and that was the last track I came up with for the album. And there was something in that moment of spontaneity, and hopefully I captured something within the performance of it that I did today, which was a first. I haven't played that live before, so.
See, so we did get an exclusive because he never performed it live. So first time here on MoonKILL, which is another reason why MoonKILL is so special, awesome. This is his album, Baz Francis, Face That Launched 1,000 Shipwrecks. You need to guys go check it out. Where can they find it, Baz?
Well, if you're downloading, it's on iTunes and Amazon. And if you're wanting this lovely CD that you see before you here, you can go on the Magic Cat Records page on Facebook or the Baz Francis music page on Facebook. I'm also on YouTube and SoundCloud and all that stuff. But yeah, Facebook is the best place to go.
All right. So we did Each Side of the Night. Second song you did, which was
Don't Let Me Go On.
Don't Let Me Go On.
Well,
tell us about that one.
That's the single of the album, or the video single, and it had a vibrancy to it, and it was a very poppy song, and the video was. I wanted to do something that looked like I was back 100 years ago, and what was the word? A true Southern dandy. Writing with writing with my quill and all that, and feather, and I like the idea of me being that. And the video would have been authentically 100 years ago, but you do see a car go by in the background at one point. But just for the record, for any of you detail obsessives out there, it was a 100-year-old car.
Right on.
It wasn't really. It was a Vauxhall Corsa. But it's not the point. It's suspending belief.
How was that doing that video? Was
cold. The heating was broken in this big manor house.
Oh.
And I was cold, and I was actually warming myself up underneath the big light.
Was it one of those that took forever to do?
It was done in an evening. They were good guys. Tom Barker and the crew did that, and they did a fantastic job. And I also do think that when you do something uncomfortable and you sort of test yourself, you'll get these reactions out of yourself that you wouldn't have gotten were you to be comfortable and at ease and just very basic. And I like to be pushed, and the weather in the UK certainly pushes you to be a little extreme at times, although it's not as bad. I've got to say this as a disclaimer, as it is for my friends in Finland who have to deal with minus 14 degrees on a regular basis. So, but by Southern Californian standards, British weather is somewhat less clement.
Okay, so that was filmed?
That was filmed in Wales, which is where most of the album was recorded. So I filmed that in Mumbles, or just outside Mumbles. It's a gorgeous part of the South Welsh coast.
Because you've been out in California for a while.
Yeah.
Right.
I've been living here for over a year now. So that was filmed about, I would say, 6 months before we moved.
Oh, okay.
So,
Right. Let's just get to stick with the set list for now. Third song you did was
Revenge of the Animal Kingdom. And yeah, which is rather fitting here because we're being taken over by the cats and dogs of the household today. And I couldn't be happier. Look at him over there.
If you guys watch some of the video clips, the performances, you might see some cats walking around. We have at MoonKIll.
He's distinctly unimpressed. And that's great for all the viewers at home. There's nothing better to bring you down to earth when you start thinking you're a big shot than spending time in the presence of cats, because they'll let you know that you're nothing.
Yeah, it looks like it needs a little more from you, Baz. Not impressed at all.
I know. Gotta up my game. I never have this problem with donkeys. Donkeys, easily impressed.
Oh,
Cats, nah.
so now we know what animal to get next time we have you come down here. Donkeys all the way.
And Revenge of the Animal Kingdom was very, very fitting because of our company. But it's a serious song as well, because I think that we as humans spend so much time looking out for ourselves that poor animals get mistreated. And I don't want to be pious about it, but it does break my heart to see the way in which people are very flippant about cruelty to animals.
What do you mean?
Well, I'm a vegan, and this is unconnected to my view on animal rights, mostly. But you say to people, well, I don't eat meat because I don't like the idea of animals dying for me to have a meal. And they'll say, or a lot of people will still say, yeah, but it's only an animal. And I personally don't believe my life to be any more important in the grand scheme of the universe than that of the ant or the cockroach. I genuinely don't. I value my life more, but I don't believe that my existence is special because I'm a human being. And a lot of people do think that, and they think that the animal kingdom owes it to them to provide them with a meal. And there is no respect for the process. And take Thanksgiving, for example. You're going to eat turkey, and that's fine if you are cool with the idea of eating an animal. You know, don't leave anything behind. Respect the food chain. I get it. But what I don't like is all of the waste that animal has given up its life for you to have a meal, and you're wasting a lot of the meat. And furthermore, people displaying pictures of themselves proudly with a dead animal carcass, you know, and to try and be cute. And it's like, you don't try and strip the animal of its dignity in the meal. Enjoy it, but don't do that. But can you imagine if the shoe was on the other foot and it was a dead human being being paraded in that way? People would be outraged. But what's the difference in in most societies throughout the world? Well, it's different because they're human. And I don't subscribe to that. And when human beings are up against it and, you know, there's a nuclear holocaust, trust me, it'll be the cats, it'll be the cockroaches, they'll be our masters. You watch it. you watch. And I think it pays to be respectful to them now, whilst human beings think we're on top.
Top of the food chain.
Allegedly.
Well, that's cool. Well, everyone's got their beliefs and opinions.
But that's what the song's about. So.
Yeah. And then here at MoonKIll, we're not here to tell you you're wrong and your opinion or your beliefs.
Likewise, if you were to have a meet with your meal later, I wouldn't judge you for that. It's your choice, and I have no doubt that you would be respectful in the manner in which you eat it. But a lot of people are not. And, you know, like, for example, when you go to the store and there'll be packaging for ham, and the front cover of the packaging will be a pig with a knife and fork licking its lips going, it's something in me that I just don't like that. And like I said, when the cities are all overgrown by nature, we know that nature will reclaim the earth. It goes to the same logic that animals will one day outsmart us humans.
Wait a minute.
Maybe they have already. I mean, look at the cat can like go to the bathroom in your house, and like with my beloved cats, we'll diligently pick it up. We'll do that because they've got us well trained. See, they're smart. You are smart. Looking at me like that.
Yeah, look at that. That was pretty evil.
To the viewers who can't see this, we're getting stared out by a very vigilant cat right now. I'm on your side, mate.
There you go. All right, so after the Animal Kingdom, you played...
That's My Problem No More.
That's My Problem No More. Tell us a little bit about that one.
That one is about a toxic relationship and that beautiful moment when you wake up one morning having dreamt that you're still in that toxic relationship and going, oh yeah, I don't have to worry about that anymore because I'm not miserable anymore and I'm not with that person anymore and that person has no control over me. That's not my problem no more. And I found myself in that situation. I had a very negative relationship, and it was a wonderful moment to realize that that burden had been lifted, and people go their separate ways, and it's a beautiful thing because some things are just never meant to be. And it doesn't mean that people are bad. It just means that some people are not meant to be together. I can think of plenty. You've met plenty of couples, and you really like the individuals, but they don't seem to like each other very much.
Yeah. But together they're, like you said, toxic.
And that's how I feel about my past situation. It had gotten to a point where I don't want to say either of us were wrong. I just think that I was right.
Again, we're not here to suppress any opinions. But that's good. So the last song you did, for those who don't know, Baz, you're in other bands. You have other bands. The last song was not on this.
This is the only Magic 8 Ball song I did today.
The last one you did, which was called
California in the Fall.
California in the Fall.
Because we are in California and it's the fall. It just seemed like a logical choice. And I also wanted to represent Magic 8 Ball as well. This song I wrote back in 2008. I'd come to LA for the first time, and obviously I kind of liked it because I ended up moving here. And all of the packaging of California was not really what interested me. People would go, "Oh yeah, it's all the sunshine." Yeah, but I mean, look at me. I don't really deal with sunshine very well. I blister. People would say, "Oh yeah, but it's glamorous," and it's like, yeah, but whose version of glamour? And people had all of these notions of what California was. Even I did. And I got home to England at the time, and I was just like, I don't need the hot weather. I don't need all of this glamour. But then again, England doesn't have this, and England doesn't have that. And I can always go back to California in the fall and get get my fix. And then my beloved grandparents died. And once they did, I realized that there was very little reason for me to stay in England. There was a lot of personal reasons as well. And I thought everyone else who I love has the ability to get on an aeroplane. My grandparents did not. And I don't regret staying in England until the end of their lives. But once they went and things got needlessly political in England, my wife and I moved. And I adore this city, and I still don't need the hot weather. I still don't need the glamour, and I just have this connection to the place. And it just, moving here was, I guess, a logical move. And California in the fall explains that feeling at its genesis 10 years ago. And it's also from Magic 8 Ball, who shall be returning very soon in a Californian guise.
A Magic 8 Ball, that is a California band, or?
Well, it's been a European band.
European band.
Up until now. And I've been rehearsing with a bass player out here to bring Magic 8 Ball back as a Californian band. So, with me as an honorary Californian.
Well, this
self-opposed.
Let's get a little history on where you're from. So let's say, okay, you've been in California 10 years, but let's see, where was Baby Baz from?
Baby Baz. Well, I've been living here a year, but I've been coming to California for 17. And I was born in Ascot, England, which is in the home counties near London. It's a very nice area. And it's near Windsor Castle. And you've got the lovely Windsor Great Park. And you're about 25 miles away from London. And it was really nice. And I still love England a great deal. And yeah, it was great, but it was just time to sort of move on. And with music, I always used it as an opportunity to travel. And I've ended up playing in 25 countries or 21 countries, depending on how you define it. And it sort of whets your appetite for travel. and for change, as we were saying beforehand. So I'm confident in my choice that where we ended up is the right place for us, because it's not just we went to one place different and then said, "Oh, that'll do." It was after going across all 6 continents and going, "It's this place that keeps pulling me back." So
now while you were still in England growing up, is that where you got? I mean, well, obviously, it's where you started playing guitar, or was guitar the first instrument you played?
guitar was the first, well, piano in school, but the first musical instrument I played properly was the guitar. And I was self-taught up to what was predicted to be grade 5 standard in England, whatever that means. And all these sort of grades and certificates, they're meaningless anyway, you know. It's all about feeling, if you ask me. And I started playing guitar when I was 14, and I formed my first band that I have now also brought back, Mansion Harlots, when I was 16, late 15, early 16 years old. And that was where I was based, and I would go out into Europe and play shows there in due course. Once I'd built something of a reputation and a repertoire out of various places in England. We rehearsed in London near Camden Town. We rehearsed in Essex near Southend. There's another place, Binfield, in the Royal County of Berkshire, don't you know? My parents' old house in Old Windsor, my friend's house in Englefield Green, which is in Surrey. And that was where we were based from. And it's such a small country and such a small continent that it's just not that hard to wake up in the morning in the south of England and do a show in Scotland later that day. It's viable. Whereas you come out here and that wouldn't, well, that same distance would probably take you across a matter of counties, you know?
Yeah.
It's just a different scale altogether.
How were you able, let's see, so for Americans, and for us learning of never been there, you know, hearing about these, like, you know, like say the famous clubs back then, were you able to play those, like how we have the Whiskey and, you know what I mean, and those famous kind of clubs here in England, London, they would be, you know, the ones.
Yeah, I mean, I've played a few of these venues that you speak of. Trying to think of, I mean, one good venue in central London is the Borderline. They've had some big acts come and do smaller shows there. Trying to think of other venues of that ilk.
What are the venues out there, you know?
The Garage in Highbury.
Well, I mean, in that area, you know. I mean, I can think of, what's that Beatles one?
Oh, the Cavern.
The Cavern.
Yeah, I've played there. Well, I say I've played there. That's a good example. The Cavern got knocked down in the 70s or whatever. And then they realized, we've kind of lost out on a bit of a moneymaker here. So they got the bricks from here and they rebuilt the Cavern next door as like a museum. And a lot of venues, and again, I'm not trying to name names out here or in London, for the very reason that a lot of venues that once were vital to the music scene and produced some fantastic acts have become somewhat tributes to their former self. And what they do, and it's a common practice both sides of the pond, is to try and exploit younger artists and go, would you like an opportunity to play at the world famous whatever? Now, if you buy this many tickets up front, and it's the whole pay to play.
Yeah.
And what has struck me when I've played these clubs in both the States and England is that a lot of them aren't anything special. And some of the places that pride themselves on being dives are actually where it's at. So, the Cavern Club was big on the Mersey beat scene in the 60s. Mm-hmm. But then by the 70s, I believe, it was defunct. And then you had the Hacienda nightclub in Manchester for dance, and that's no more. These clubs, like bands, have lifespans, and they die and they leave a lot of happy memories. But some die, but they leave the corpse out. If you pee on my album, I will not take that as a favourable review. And some venues die, yet they keep the corpse out to try and flog it and make a bit of a, hello baby, try and make a bit of money out of kids. And it's always that.
Well, it is, right? It's still the name, even though they rebuilt the Cavern, it's the Cavern. Maybe not exact where the Beatles played, but like I know from my heavy metal bands, there's the Roundhouse? Is that a bigger venue out?
The Roundhouse is one of my favourite venues in London. That was
the Roundhouse and the Rainbow. Right?
The Rainbow's no more.
Oh, really?
The sulking. The Roundhouse, where the Who played their what do they call it, installation in the 70s, prior to Who's Next, was an old turning hall for the trains.
Oh.
Hence why it's a roundhouse. And then it shut down. And then they brought it back. And now it's just this beautiful venue. Just quickly going back to the Cavern thing, although the new Cavern doesn't have the props to say it had the Beatles play there. Paul McCartney did play there on Millennium Eve, so it's had a Beatle play there. So it's still a pretty hallowed spot for Beatle fans.
Yeah.
Attention hog.
See, like for me growing up, like the Roundhouse, I know is big just by being a Iron Maiden fan. Because that's all when I learned their history, and that was one of the places that they played a lot that I read up on.
I mean, with
but that seemed like a lot of people went through the Roundhouse.
The Roundhouse is it's not a club venue. It's like one step up from
a club,
a club venue in terms of size. Also, one venue that has, again, it's not a club. It's a theatre venue, but it has a great deal of history and is still going strong today. Is the Apollo in Hammersmith.
And that's another concert, right? The Hammersmith.
No Sleep Till Hammersmith by Motorhead.
Yeah.
And you'll find when Queen had a number one the first time with Bohemian Rhapsody, their big Christmas concert was at the Apollo, and Guns N' Roses played there, and everyone's played there since. But in terms of famous, iconic gigs. They've taken place there in a venue that is still going strong. But with clubs, they change hands, and people have different management styles.
Well, clearly we have a grandstander. All right, so you played these clubs before you came here,
Yeah.
right? So these places in your Mansion Harlot, the Magic 8 Ball bands.
Mansion Harlots have only done a few gigs in our history,
Okay.
whereas most of these band gigs that I did, that I'm speaking of, most of them took place with Magic 8 Ball. When I was back in Europe in March,
That's done. Okay. We'll keep on with the audio.
okay.
Yeah.
When I was back in
And she can walk around all she wants.
when I was back in Europe in March, I played one show in England with Mansion Harlots and then one in Luxembourg. So that's happened in recent history. But I think with any gig circuit, if you don't vary it up a bit, then things can get stagnant as well.
Mm-hmm.
So I moved out to LA and I started playing a whole bunch of new venues in California, and it was exciting. But I also noticed that, like anywhere in the world, it doesn't take long before you start to see the same faces and you start to get offered the same gigs. And that's fine as long as you're moving forward with your music. You don't want to just be treading water just for the sake of showing that you're out there performing, because you've got to keep things fresh. And it's like I said to you earlier, it's always a challenge to do something new. So when you said to me, will you play each side of the night? I was like, oh, I better go out back and rehearse that, because that was going to be a challenge. And I was happy to be thrown that curveball. And out in any particular music scene, you will have the predictable routes that you can go.
Mm-hmm.
And I just try and dip into them, but not stay in them.
Now going through the, let's say before you came to the States, going through the process of you started playing guitar at 14.
Yes.
Right. Now what, like, was it something that just sparked you? Was it a song? Was it a person?
It was,
You know?
two of the latter. It was a band called the Manic Street Preachers and a song called A Design for Life. And it was life-changing. It's still in my top 3 songs of all time. It was heart-wrenching to hear this. And I began to learn the guitar to the Manic Street Preachers. But the chords that James Dean Bradfield uses are pretty unusual. Even to this day, I'm like, well, okay, well, that's an odd choice of chord there. And it was great because it was my early education, because I was self-taught. My early education on the guitar came through something a little more complex than just A, B, C, D, E, F, G, and the mystery H. So that was, to me, the turning point. And like with anything, when you're a kid and you fall in love with someone or something, you do it totally and wholeheartedly, and it consumes your life. and guitar playing did for me. And I became a singer out of necessity at first, because no one else wanted to do it, and then it became something that I really felt good about. You know, I wanted to sing, and now I think I get more attention for my vocals than my guitar playing, which is fine, you know, as long as it's... Actually, I don't care if people say bad things about me. Either way, it really doesn't matter, because all art's subjective, and it's about how you feel about what you do. So I'm happy with where I'm at now in my musicianship, but I always can stand to improve, and it's the pursuit of perfection that is never going to be found that keeps any of us going, doesn't it? You know, I'm having a bad day today, but I bet tomorrow's going to be better. And it's that keeps you driven to wake up and to get out of bed. And I think it's a pretty positive thing.
Oh, that's good, man. It's good. So from here on out, what is on the horizon for Baz? Bands or solo? Either. Both.
Solo, I'm playing at Bar 20 in Hollywood in January. I've got no solo appearances between here and then booked, although you never know. And Magic 8 Ball are returning to do a Christmas special on LA Talk Radio in a few weeks' time. So that'll be semi-acoustic, but it will herald the new dawn of the band, with the blessing of Robbie J. Holland over in England. And before I left to come and see you today, I was continuing my work on the forthcoming Mansion Harlots album that'll come out in the new year. So the horizon is pretty exciting. And then after this, next year, I want to really get back into my Magic 8 Ball thinking hat and write the fourth album for that band. But this year, with both the European live dates and the making of the album, has been largely Mansion Harlots territory. And I still play Magic 8 Ball songs at every one of my gigs. Mm-hmm. Well, give or take a couple. And yeah, it's just been nice to play with Nick Leverstein, our new bass player, and get back into those more communal ways with the band.
That's good. So people can find Baz Francis where?
Out the back of 7-Eleven on Wilshire and Barry in Los Angeles.
Asking for change or green?
Well, green would be preferable.
But you'll take the change.
All I'm going to say is I'll do pretty much anything for a diet soda these days. But that's neither here nor there.
One time I did have, and I didn't feel bad about it. A guy asked me for some change, or if I had any money. All I had was change on me. And he gave him, said, "Hey, here you go. That's all I got." And he looked at it and was like, "You don't have any dollars?"
What?
Yeah. And I thought about it. It's the same thing I said in my head, except it was more like, "What the fuck?" And I just bluntly was like, "You're a fucking bum. How are you to be choosy?" So I said, "Okay, here." And I took the change back and I just told him to fuck off.
Yeah, totally. I don't like that sense of entitlement that people seem to have. And I think some people can be disrespectful in the way in which they receive generosity, because no one owes anyone anything. But we do these things, or you do these things. I'm not as nice as you. You do these things because you want to try and go outside of what is required of you and actually be a nice person, a better person than what's expected of you by the book. And funnily enough, going back onto the subject of propositioning, I was actually propositioned when I was a teenager by a gentleman, and he said he'd pulled up his car next to me, and I was walking to college, and so I was 18, and he was driving this Mercedes-Benz, and he said, and I'm not exactly the most masculine person, and I was wearing a pearl necklace and eyeliner, and this guy pulled up next to me, and he was a very alpha male, and he said, "Hi, do you know where to go around here for fun?" And there was a fun fair in town, so I directed him to the fun fair, and I'll never forget it. He had this gap in his teeth, and he looked at me, and his eyes went all beady, and he went, "No, I mean fun." And I recommended, I'm not going to name the town, but I recommended a nearby town that had a somewhat bad reputation for this kind of thing, and I recommended there. But he didn't want to drive 5 miles to go to said town, so we went, "What about you?" And I said, "I'm sorry." And he goes, "You look nice." I said, "Are you propositioning me?" And he goes, "Yeah." and as I'm looking in his car, he's got a baby seat in there. And I'm thinking, what's this guy doing? Like, he's coming on to this teenage boy, and I'm thinking, but who's the baby seat for? Anyway, a few days later, I go past. That house he parked up outside was his new house that he just bought with his wife and his newborn baby. And I'm thinking he's propositioning me for sex. Literally on his doorstep. Anyway, that may well have been 20 years ago, but if I've still got some little bit of that charm left over, then I reckon I could get more than a Diet Coke outside of 7-Eleven for my good looks. At least.
With no necklace and eyeliner.
Well, I mean, maybe a bit of makeup, but, still.
I have to ask then, and the pearl necklace and eyeliner, what phase of Baz was that? Were you going through a new romantic gothy phase, or?
I didn't go through phases so much as I went through charity shops. And if something was cheap and nasty, then it was very similar to myself. So I'd buy it, and then I'd wear it, and I would wear this terrible melting pot at times of outdated ladies' fashion wear and military surplus clothing, which was a very Manic Street Preachers thing to do. I just don't think I particularly wore it well. And my application of eyeliner, as you can see, has gotten to a stage of proficiency that it wasn't when I was 18. But when you're a new father and you're a new homeowner and you're horny as hell, you don't tend to be too picky about makeup appliance in your desired rent boy.
Wow, that's a hell of a story. Yeah.
Bet you wish I hadn't started it now.
No, No, it's great. It's perfect.
I'm having trauma.
That was great. That was perfect for the show. It was great.
I can hear my wife laughing behind me. And I'm sure I told her that story before.
Have you heard that one before?
It always makes me laugh.
Yeah, well, there's always those stories that make you laugh every time you tell them. That's a great one. I'm glad we have it.
Oh, I should actually clarify. I didn't sleep with him.
Yeah, finish the story.
I didn't sleep with him.
Did you tell him to beat it?
That's a very ambiguous statement. No, I didn't encourage him to beat it. I thought that under the circumstances, he might take me up on that offer. Oh. But I remember, like, years later, I realized he was still living there, and I'd harbored this memory and thought, you're a piece of work. And I had this cucumber at home that was going off. So I went round there and just threw it at his house. And some eggs as well. Made quite a nice meal on his rooftop. But it was a protest. And I thought, what better way to symbolise a gay affair, an attempted gay affair, when you're married and you've got, a newborn baby, than by throwing a rotting cucumber and 2 eggs at your house. Sort of, it's very symbolic, I thought.
Yeah. A freak. Huh. All right. Well, let me...
And sorry, and just another thing to clarify, I have no problem with him if he is gay. As a bisexual man myself, I have no problem with that at all. However, I think if you're gonna have a wife and a newborn baby and a new house, don't proposition young boys on your doorstep. I just think that's unfair on the wife and the kid. That's all I'm saying.
Right in front of your house. That is a bit odd.
I feel we've spent more time talking about this than we have my music, but I think this is what the listeners really want to hear.
Anything?
Do you want to get recommends for playlist? Mike?
What do you mean?
Like if he has any songs you'd like to, like if you do a playlist that includes music
yeah.
that you'd like to recommend.
So,
And music that influences you, music that
yeah, so for the rest of the show, I'll play some music. Give me a set. Give me a 5-6 song bad set of stuff that whether it influences you or you're listening to now or old, new, whatever it is.
Okay, and any genre?
Any genre.
Any genre.
Yeah.
I am going to say I'd like to recommend something by the Manic Street Preachers. I say the Manic Street, it's Manic Street Preachers. And I think the track I'd like to put forward will be From Despair to Where.
All right.
And I've been listening to a lot of Queen recently, as there's a lot of people. Have a lot of people. I've been listening to that because of the movie, and I was a huge Queen fan before that anyway, so it's just a continuation, and it's got me thinking about some of their deeper cuts. And I am going to... What do you want? I'm going to recommend My Melancholy Blues by Queen.
By Queen, right.
Genius Freddie. Anyone who watched the videos of my session will see that I'm wearing my Freddie Mercury t-shirt today.
Yes, in the checkered outfit, iconic checkered outfit.
And yeah, I think the greatest thing about the new movie is the fact that it's just going to introduce a whole new generation to Queen, and it's just been lovely to hear some songs of theirs in places that I wouldn't ordinarily hear them because the movie's made them popular again, and that's really nice. And it's got me thinking about, you know, these songs like My Melancholy Blues that are deeper.
The deeper cuts.
Yeah. Quickly going through my other selections, I am going to pick Joining a Fan Club by Jellyfish, which is just very Queen in influenced perfection by a Californian band. And I was very lucky to meet Roger Joseph Manning Jr. a few months ago, a very charming gentleman, and pass him on a couple of my CDs, which hopefully he listened to. I'm also going to pick a song by my good friend Donny V called Better Love Next Time. I think that's one of his finest songwriting moments. And in conclusion, for 5 and 6, I'm going to pick a Smashing Pumpkins song. And I think the track I'd like to go for is... Oh, there's so many great ones. I'd like to go for Jelly Belly, because it's heavy and loud and brilliant. And since we were talking about Parliament earlier, I'm going to pick a song that I had playing at our wedding ceremony in England last year, and it's called Wizard of Finance.
All right.
So,
by Parliament.
By Parliament, yeah.
Wizard of Finance. What album is that on?
I think it's on their third album.
Wizard of Finance. But I got...
Yeah, thou was a wizard of finance.
Why is that stomping me right now? Man.
I can't pronounce the album title. It's...
Funkadelic versus the Placebo Syndrome.
There you go.
Funkadelic versus the Placebo Syndrome. 78, 77. That's the one with Flashlight on it.
Flashlight was...
Correct.
And what was the one with the big bird on it?
The big bird.
Yeah, there's a big bird.
The white background?
Yeah.
Motor Booty Affair.
There you go. You can understand why I described the previous album, though, as the third one. It's a lot easier to pronounce than Funkadelic.
They're actually that's their Jesus. About their seventh album.
They
yeah, that's about their sixth or seventh album.
It's a tough one to define because after their seventh album, they merged into Parliament, P-Funk All Stars.
No, well, they still put out another one under Parliament, and it was called
With the elephant.
With the elephant, Trumbipulation.
Yeah, that's a cool album.
We were when I started DJing, the guy that taught me how to DJ. I took over a stack of CDs was house one day, and he knew a lot of rap songs, but he didn't know a lot of older songs. So I went over his house, and I stole my auntie's. It was the greatest hits, Flashlight, The Bomb. And then it was I took over some James Brown CDs. And when I played it for him, he basically lost his mind because here's all these samples from these songs that we're listening to. Because he was a big Digital Underground fanatic, which Digital Underground from Oakland area. But they used a lot of Parliament samples, a lot of funk samples, and me and him just dove heavy into Parliament history.
With Trumpetulation, that didn't get that much praise from the press.
Oh, no.
But I was like, this is really cool stuff. And then
they were on their way out kind of thing, you know, and at the same time, the P-Funk All-Stars had just before that, they kind of peaked. That's why it seemed like George kind of went on his own when he went solo.
Yeah.
And then Atomic Dog came out.
yeah,
And then he did like what? Do Fries Go With That Shake and all these other weird singles you put out. But he put out the computer games. But before that, so like I grew up on those albums before, which were the not so electronic albums. Like Dr. Funkenstein and Chocolate City. And there's Up for the Downstroke and stuff like those ones.
well, Chocolate City and Up for the Downstroke are more traditional soul records.
Well, they're Parliament records. They were still Parliament records.
They were still Parliament, but it's like a different band. Because the first album was like this weird mashup between soul and folk.
The first, they put out one and I forgot the name of it.
Yeah,
it was like a bunch of trees or something.
yeah,
in the front.
they recorded it in England or something.
Yeah,
and then
because the same time Funkadelic came out with "Free Your Ass, Your Mind Will Follow." I think around that same time.
yeah, and with Down on the Upstroke, that had the remaking of "Testify" on it.
Yeah, which was re-recorded 100 times
From his days in the Parliaments.
It was the Parliaments and then the Parlettes and yeah, there was there's probably about a good 20 versions of just George Clinton re-recording that song.
It's so hard to explain the history of Parliament Funkadelic to people who don't already know a lot of it, because it is so confusing. It is so confusing.
But it's good stuff.
It is amazing stuff. And
It's funny because you listen to the Funkadelic stuff early and it's so psychedelic and out there. Like I bought, when I was like 11, I bought For Your Ass and Your Mind Will Follow. And I took it home and I could not understand it. I mean, I was 11. I don't remember why I bought it. But I bought it, I took it home, and I listened to it, and I had to play it. I don't know how many times. I still couldn't understand it. I didn't get it at the time. You know, it was so out there.
well, I think what with Funkadelic, I mean, I am more of a Parliament guy, but Funkadelic came into their own, I feel, a few albums in. That the early ones were more. They're just. I didn't feel that they were as cohesive.
Well, they were just psych rock, and they
weren't bad. I'm just saying that
they were way out there.
I think that Funkadelic came into their own a few albums.
Yeah, well, they started structuring their songs more of songs instead of just free form. Yeah, free form. And
And I love Chocolate City, but like when you listen to that and then you listen to what they did during their funk era, it's like two different bands anyway.
Yeah, more electronics got involved. The synthesizers got more heavy.
They
didn't have that in the early days.
Yeah,
and they did have the horns and things were fun because to me, Dr. Funkenstein is still one of the funkiest albums I've ever heard in my life. Yeah. But Parliament song, end cap of the Baz playlist.
Oh, Wizard of Finance.
Wizard of Finance.
Wizard of Finance.
And I don't play much Parliament on MoonKILL, but I am always glad to play Parliament on MoonKILL.
And I think that this song's actually kind of going back to what I was saying. It's a nice bridge between the soul side of them from Down on the Upstroke and the Mothership Connection onwards era.
Yeah.
It's got that sort of nice sort of balance between the two worlds that they both excel in.
Oh, they were great. All right. Well, again, from this point on, thank you, Baz, for coming.
Before I go, I have.
Uh-oh.
Because on behalf of all the artists that you support in Los Angeles and California and our lovely music scene, I'm honored to be your first guest on this show. And I wanted to get you a little something. And there you go.
Thank you, Baz.
Thank you for all your support on MoonKIll Radio, and best of luck with the new show.
And we will have you again.
Definitely. You can have me anytime you want.
Oh, man.
I should clarify that statement after the story I told earlier.
Oh, look at, and he knows what to do. Give a fat guy some chocolates, man. How can you go wrong?
Oh,
Man.
but I also
Reese's Pieces.
gave you another copy of this album. So
Yes. Oh, well,
one for you, my
please.
friend.
No, and I will be opening this, so you can sign it for me, please. But a Magic 8-Ball one, and I have to ask, the last podcast you did, and you did a Magic 8-Ball song. I cannot remember what song it was. Do you remember?
What was the podcast?
It was two guys. I can't remember the name of the podcast, but I remember you posted it, and it was two guys that were doing the show. I think they were both on the mic with you.
Was it one woman and one man?
No, it was two men. At least that's the only ones I heard. I don't know who's in the background or anything, But that song you did on that one, it was like a Magic 8-Ball song. It's a good driving, just straight ahead kind of rock, heavy riffing song.
Keep Me Out the Sunlight, perhaps?
Might be, but I was just seeing if you remembered what song it was.
Podcast.
You posted on Instagram, and you put the link up, and I checked the link, and that's why I listened to it. And you did send it about 4 or 5 songs or so. One of them was a Magic 8-Ball song. But it was just a good, just heavy riffing song. With the beast, of course. If you have not seen this guy's guitar, this thing is an entity in itself. Okay? So you must go on his Facebook, Instagram, and just, I think, and I'll be honest, and I think the audience will agree that did your guitar have a name?
I don't have a name for it, so.
But this thing needs its own Instagram and Facebook page.
It gets enough coverage on mine. You'll give it an ego.
If anything deserves an ego, it's that guitar.
I'm just trying to think of the Magic 8-Ball song.
Yeah, I can't remember offhand. But again, Baz, thank you for coming.
Thank you, Jose.
I
Thank you
appreciate
very
it.
much.
Anything else from the floor? Anybody? No? We're good. Thank you. And we'll be playing those songs and playing some other stuff. And hopefully we'll have Baz again. Make sure to check him out. Shows. He's mentioned his shows. Check out his Instagram, Facebook.
Yeah.
What
Twitter.
else? Twitter.
SoundCloud.
You got SoundCloud?
Yeah. Adult Friend Finder.
Do you have a Bandcamp?
Grinder.
Grinder. There you go. You have a Bandcamp at all, or
Not Bandcamp, no. SoundCloud.
SoundCloud? Okay, check out the SoundCloud, and we'll try and have them back again.
It would
Thank
be
you,
my
Baz.
pleasure. Thank you, sir.